Hello and welcome. We are on the roll, presented to you by Angle 3 Pictures. My name is Jenny, and today we're joined with
Daryl, Mayen,
Benjamin.
And today we're going to talk about Short Films 101. So this is a question that we often get asked about, is how do we get started with our short films? Who would like to start?
Well, we could probably start with script writing. How do you guys also write? You, Ben and Mayen?
Yes, we do. Yes, we do.
Do you have any writing processes that you go through?
Usually a lot of self-loathing and hatred. And then at some point you
think all that self-loathing and hatred was worth it because I've got
you start with an idea, you write it down, and it will probably not be very good, so you rewrite it and you write it and then you rewrite it again. And at the point where you're like, this could work, then you start approaching people that you want to get together to make it happen.
Yeah. The hardest jump is always like you have something written, it's just sitting in your drawer or you're sitting on your computer, and I've had plenty of people walk up and say like, how do you get this piece of paper to actually become a film? And like, what got you guys to get Po Tenjal, for example, off the ground? Like, 'cause it could just exist as a script. Like, what were your processes for actually turning that into something?
Yeah, I think it's, once you have the idea and everyone's on the same page and you've got like at least one other person with you willing to commit to it, it's a matter of then setting timeframes and breaking it down, you know. So we've got the script. What do we need now? Obviously, we need a location where to shoot this. We need a DOP. We need a, sound recorder. And so
Yep.
You can hear me? Yep, cool. So you find all these different people that you need and all the different facets you need to make it a production.
Yep.
And you kind of just take it by step method. And yeah, if you do something, if you take it step by step, eventually it's going to kind of collate into this big project. And it's just a matter of setting a deadline and setting, I think that's the biggest thing, is setting a date of what is going to happen.
Yeah.
That's the main thing. Otherwise, it's just going to fluff around. And
Yep.
you could arrive on the first day and you won't know what you're doing. But I think what I've learned is arriving on the first day and sitting down with all the members involved and getting their input of the script, seeing if they have any ideas that could translate really well.
Yeah.
And then again, it's a break down what you're going to be doing.
Yeah.
So for me, it's just like micro steps, but they go past really quickly.
Yeah,
Before you know it, you've shot like a video.
a feature film, a 10-minute skit video.
Yeah.
My first short was a 20-page script, and all shot in a weekend, which was insane.
Yeah.
But that was it was a 20-page script that was just sitting on my computer for about 2 years, really. And it wasn't until I happened to come back to New Zealand after working in Hong Kong, and I had a coffee with my old flatmate Camilla, and I was like, hey, wouldn't it be cool if we shot a short film? And she was like, yeah, well, first thing you got to do is just set a deadline. And I was like, yeah, there's a lot of things happening. You don't know. I'm kind of looking for jobs as well. And she was like, no, it was December at the time. And she was like, how's March, late March? That's 3 months away. You've got 3 months to kind of really lock down everything. And I was like, yeah, 3 month future Daryl will worry about that. Why not? So we both penciled it into our calendar, and it wasn't until like February I was like, oh crap, it's coming up.
Yeah.
And then we started piecing everything together. But that entire way, we had the deadline. Everybody was aware of the deadline.
Yeah.
And it was just slowly coming to it.
I think that the oh crap moment is actually really important to talk about, because a lot of people look at, their favorite feature films or Hollywood blockbusters and like, I'll never get to that standard. But you listen to like any team consisting of like directors and actors and the writers and the producers talk about their project, and you realize that still happens when they've got like, whether they have no budget or whether they have like a budget of like $100 million.
Yeah.
I remember listening to the commentary behind Shaun of the Dead, and that wasn't the biggest film in the world, but it sure wasn't the smallest film in the world. And this is Simon Pegg, Nick Frost, Edgar Wright, that holy trifecta, and they're still talking about how like, oh, we have no money, or we have no time, they had to just shoot so much when it was like their lunch breaks, they're supposed to be resting. No, we have to keep going. We have to keep going to get all the shots we want to get.
Yep.
And that's what it will feel like pretty much the entire time of the shoot itself, I reckon. It'll feel like you're constantly panicked and you have no time to rest, but you have to shoot everything.
If anything, the most important thing is just prepare for the worst. Just plan.
Yeah.
Have know the script back to front. Have it all visualized so you know exactly, well, at least generally the storyboard and how things get to point A to point B.
Yeah.
I think that's really, really important. Otherwise, you're just going to show up on set on the day as a director going, we'll try the shot,
Yeah, and no.
That said, though, everyone has a different process.
That's true.
I remember, so let's talk about Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit. You can see how even Peter Jackson, for Lord of the Rings, it was very clear and he knew what he wanted. And then for The Hobbit, he had a lot less direction.
Shoot on the fly.
Yeah, he had to literally tell everyone to go home, and he'd just sit on set and figure out what he wanted to do. And that's just what it is like sometimes. One of my favorite moments as a budding short film director was, again, watching commentaries, because, hey man, commentaries are really good when you just hear the thought process of your favorite directors or writers, and finding out that David Cronenberg never blocked out his scenes until he arrived on set.
Yeah.
Not all of us will have the kind of budgets that he will have, but he would turn up on set and be like, okay, so we're going to shoot it this way, and I want the actor to come in here through the wall where there is no door yet, so we're just going to take an early lunch break, and I'm going to have my crew build a door. And you're like, oh, and they're like, oh, okay, cool, that's what they have to do.
Yeah.
And stuff like that is really interesting, where you have people who will have sets made to how they planned it, and then you have directors who turn up to sets having no idea what they're going to do, and then they choose it then.
Yep. Terrence Malick doesn't have any storyboards whatsoever.
Really?
Yep, no storyboards whatsoever.
I can see why.
You see it.
Yeah, it's very
But he just show up and be like, let's try this. And for the actors as well, sometimes they might not even have scripts. Sometimes the actors might only have the mood sent to them, and then they have to just go with it.
A lot of what he captures is moments.
Yeah.
Just in the time and in that moment in time, that's what he captures.
Yep.
No matter how much you kind of pre-plan it or whatever. But I know I kind of work very similarly. I have a kind of a base map of where I want it to go from A to B.
Yep.
But I think it's super important to be flexible and adaptable on set, because you're working with all these different creative minds. There could be, the DP might have something that you might not see that might actually benefit, the story as a whole. So I think it's super important to be flexible. But at the end of the day, for me, what really counts is when you have people that come on board that are equally as committed. When you have that, the thing just drives itself, because everyone knows what their responsibilities are.
Yeah.
When you set a deadline and you tell other people, that's the main thing. Tell other people, so you set that deadline for yourself. Because now not only do you have a responsibility for the script, but you have a responsibility for all these other people that are going to be part of this. So yeah, it's definitely a group thing. It's
Jenny, what was your process like tackling Boom Warrior?
Oh god, Boom Warrior that was my first film, and I'm working on the second and third episode at the moment.
You're making it public. That's bold.
I'm making it public, so there's going to have to be a deadline. But
for you, it was really intense, because it was the first time you acted, the first time you directed, and the first time you wrote it as well.
Yes, first time I wrote it as well.
in the deep end.
So I
With
really
no floats or anything.
So it's kind of, this idea was brought and
Sorry, that was just my stomach.
just brought about from me being a film recorder on a shoot and just playing around a bit when we had a bit of downtime.
Yeah.
And the idea of Boom Warrior came up. And so I got that nickname, but the idea didn't really come around to make it into a short film until I was listening to Linkin Park.
Oh wow.
And I had a dream of a kind of ninja-esque sound operator running through the forest in my head, and doing karate kicks and kung fu.
So then going from the idea, how did you move it into script?
So it's, for me, is actually quite difficult, because I'm more of a visual person. I see things in my mind. So when I was trying to put what was in my mind to paper, I found it really difficult in describing in words. So actually, I first did the storyboard rather than the script.
I'd like to address that because I know plenty of people who want to make films and they feel like they're not good enough at writing. So they feel like, oh, well, I'll never be able to do it. And the thing that I found about filmmaking, because you have so many discussions with so many different kinds of people and so many different people have their different processes, there seems to be no right way at all of doing it. You could literally make a short film off like written pieces of paper and napkins.
There was there was a recent film that was submitted. I think it was like either a short or a feature that was completely ad-libbed. There was no script at all. They basically just showed up on the day and had these actors perform and filmed. And I think it was a Finnish. I think it was a Finnish or Swedish film that was about a love story that was falling apart, and they basically just had the actors ad-lib. So sometimes you don't even have a script.
Yeah.
I need to fact check that one.
Well, I think a lot of it is really everyone needs to be on the same page, like Mayen said.
Yeah.
You have to be ready. Like you have to have an actor who's going to be okay creating the character on the fly instead of having someone's like, well, I need my script. Where is my script, Jenny? You know? Yeah.
The other thing as well is like a lot of the filmmakers as well is like, I'm waiting for funding, or I've got a story, I really want to make it perfect, and I've never done a story like this before, I've never done a film, I just want to make sure that everything kind of, all the stars align, and this is my first time. And it's similar to losing your virginity, I guess you could say. It's just like, you have your idea of it becoming this massive, blockbuster-esque kind of, it's just gonna sell, and it's like, it might very equally turn out to be turd as well.
Yeah.
And you gotta keep making it and keep making films, and Spielberg didn't become Spielberg in
Keep practicing,
one film.
I think it's really important that if you're listening to this podcast and if you're thinking of doing a short film for the first time, or even a feature film for the first time, you have to understand that, sure, you might have constraints, but that sometimes might be the beauty of it. And I'm gonna tell Daryl to link a Casey Neistat YouTube video, which is how you shoot with what you have, because he's like one of the biggest YouTubers in the world, and he very openly talks about his process, and it's just time consuming, but there's no reason why he needs a crazy fancy camera or does anything ridiculous. It's just him. It's just a guy with a camera shooting himself.
Yep.
Talking most of the time, really.
Yeah. That's the other thing as well. Is like, you just gotta have to, like, they always say, like, write what you know, shoot what you have, but I'm more in the philosophy as well. It's like, you also gotta write what you know and really what you have sometimes as well. You can't go exterior space 4,000 years ago, night. It's like, exterior space, it's like, oh, okay, well, how are you gonna get this off the ground?
Yeah.
Unless you are waiting for funding or what have you. But sometimes if you want to start with any story, start with things you can actually operate with. Like that's how Evergreen really came about, was actually you sent me a deadline about a month ago. You're like a month in advance. You're like, hey, my friend Rebecca's coming to town. I would love to work with her. Can you come up with a sketch or a story or something to work with? And I'm like, sure, absolutely. I'll pencil that in. And we shot Smoke during that time, and I completely forgot about that film until like a week before. And you're like, so that Saturday's still happening, right? And I'm like, it is. And I was like, cool, when's the script coming? And I'm like, it's coming soon. And I just found a cafe and was there for like 3 hours. And I was like, okay, I've got Ben, an Asian male. I've got Rebecca, a Caucasian female. What else do I have access to? And I'm like, we're in New Zealand. There's plenty of trees. I can do something with a tree. Like a Chinese guy and a white girl in a tree. What can I do with it? what can I possibly do with that? And like sitting around, and I was like, well, wouldn't it be interesting if you? And that's where I forgot who defined it. Was like the definition of drama is two opposing forces clashing into one another and not knowing what the outcome will be.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, well, what would be the most? You could have a lumberjack and you could have a hippie, or like a tree-hugging person, and there's your drama. You have these two forces crash into one another.
I'd also like to talk about the context of how we made that film, because that was a very weird situation where Daryl and I had not met yet.
Yes, that was the very first time.
So we had only been introduced via Facebook chat from our friends. I was living overseas in Canada. Daryl was in New Zealand. We had never met face to face, and we had already agreed to make a short film together. We met the day we shot that short film.
Yeah, actually, yeah, very good point. I completely forgot about that.
And you would have probably met Rebecca as well?
No, that was the second time. That was
second
because I
time?
was Rafa Smoke.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, that helped.
But that's how you develop connections, though, because that's like a majority of the case when you go to if you book a commercial or a
True.
That's a good point.
TV.
Yeah.
You meet for the first time and somehow
you meet for
make
the first
art.
time and you make art, and then you develop that relationship from that.
I do a weird thing, which I don't actually audition. I really should, but I don't tend to audition my
All
characters.
right, you just go
my
with-
actors. I tend to just go, okay. Well, I mean, now after 3 years of doing this, I've built a very rich network of incredibly talented actors. That I could just go, okay, I could utilize him, her, him, and just send out the emails and get something happening.
Yeah.
Okay, I feel like that's an excellent segue to talk about casting.
Yes.
So how do you cast a short film?
Yeah.
Now, I feel like everyone here shoulder taps their friends fairly regularly, but what happens if you need to audition people?
This is a great thing for Boom Warrior because me and Jenny had this big debate on the final scene of Boom Warrior. There is it's meant to be behind the scenes set, so there's meant to be a producer, a director, a cinematographer, and potentially an art director there on set, behind the scenes. And Jenny was Jenny very rightly as a director and a writer was like, we're filmmakers ourselves. Why don't we just why don't we just turn the camera around and film us? Why can't we just have anybody on set?
Oh, that's a huge debate.
And my debate was everybody has a preconceived notion of who these characters might be. I mean, the director tends to be the guy with the beret, with the scarf, or the DP tends to be a fedora. So you have preconceived notions of who these characters might be. So, Jenny, do you want to explain how Boom Warrior casting was?
Oh God, I actually have forgotten about that. Actually, that argument until you just brought it up.
Wait, so the deal was that you didn't want to audition, but Daryl did want to audition people?
No, in terms of to save it's not really costs really.
I guess
Save manpower.
keep the crew size small.
Keeping the crew size small because, with our productions, we tend to keep our crew really smaller compared to other productions.
Yep.
So I kind of wanted to keep it small as possible, to make things faster.
So what do you mean by that? Did you mean literally just turn the camera around so you see everyone on set doing their job instead of having an actor cast pretend? All right.
Like just lock off the camera on the tripod and just almost a selfie, hit record and just run around back and with another camera and pretend like I'm filming another camera.
But I think Daryl persuaded me not to do it that way, which I think it worked better.
Cool.
Yeah,
it did work better.
Yeah, it was interesting. My first
I have to say with that because I don't necessarily come from a film background. For those who are listening, I'm actually a registered nurse who's basically turned into a sound operator at the same time. So I don't have those typical stereotypes of a director with a beret or
I've never worn a beret while I've directed.
those typical stereotypes being the cameraman, have to be focusing on the camera all the time or don't touch my gear, that type of thing.
Yeah.
All the I won't say rules, but all the things that you do and you don't do on set.
Stigma.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's quite interesting in terms that was a bit of a learning curve with me directing and writing a script at the same time.
My first short, I actually decided to use just non-pro actors, just all first time actors.
Everyone?
Everyone.
Wow.
Yeah, all four. That was only because it was my first short film and I really didn't this could really I had one foot out the door the entire time. I was like, I think, at least for me, every short film, there's always that one moment, probably within the first couple of hours or first 3 hours, where I'm like, not too late. I can just tell everybody to leave. It's all a mistake. It's a really bad idea. It's not wasting anybody's time. So, especially for this shoot, I constantly had that for eternity. So I was just like, if I brought non-professional actors and all the crew really had no experience on film sets, it was all just my friends. So at any time I could just be like, look guys, I'm sorry, this experiment was really it just went tits up. We could just fold it. But that's kind of why I wanted to go with non-pro actors was like, and at the time, and
So you could back out?
I could back out. Yeah.
You're yourself.
I don't know why in my mind I was kind of like, I can't, like, I'm just a new writer-director. I don't know how I could possibly sit down in front of an actual professional actor and going, okay, so this character is a recent widow who is battling. I was like, this sounds stupid in my head. How can I possibly tell an actor something which is exactly what their job's meant to be? And I was like, if I tell a friend, they could be more open to understanding this character, maybe. I don't know. It was a really backwards approach.
But still very, I think, common. Because I reckon a lot of people probably go through the same thing where they're like, I don't feel like I'm a good enough director, so I feel like I have to make sure that my cast isn't very good.
Yeah.
So I'll be able to pull off an okay production because they feel like they're too inferior if they got people who have trained as actors.
Yeah.
I feel like that is something that has come across quite a few times.
That's how I felt when I was kind of directing and acting, and because I was like, oh shit, I'm acting and I'm directing at the same time, and I've got these really awesome actors like on side of me. I'm like, oh fuck.
Yeah, when they're too awesome, that's like puts you at like, oh.
You're like, you constantly wonder the whole time, like, oh, am I good enough?
Exactly,
Oh,
yeah.
Am I good enough?
You know that feeling. You know that feeling when the actor goes, okay, so I'm trying to understand my character more. What was the character doing a couple of hours before this? And I'm like, that's a very good question. I will come back to you after I walk around the block.
Yeah, and figure out what that
Yeah, to
is.
figure out what this.
I found out the best way to answer that is to be like, that's a very good question. What do you think?
Yeah. Okay, how about gear? I think I would love to work it, like, because the other big thing is everybody's like, I don't want to start shooting until I actually have the right gear, and the answer is, there's never a right gear. They always think it's gonna be like, oh, everybody's shooting with an Arri Alexa. I want an Arri Alexa, or I want to make sure this thing is like cinema quality, because you never know if the short film might end up being played in the cinema. And it's like, these days, really, you could just play with an iPhone. You could do incredible work with a DSLR, and yeah, that's my perspective on gear. But how did you guys shoot Po Tenjal or your other shorts?
I mean, initially we started off with very basic gear, and then
What's basic gear?
you know, like a handheld DSLR camera.
Yeah.
Like a mic already attached to the camera.
Yeah.
So, and lighting, what we use, natural lighting, a lot of it. I mean, sometimes we had a reflector or two. And then once we started developing connections and kind of networking with people that had access to all this gear and wanted to use it like in their spare time, like with one of our DPs. He's got all this gear, but he doesn't get any time to play with it because he's always on a professional set where they want limited things.
Yeah.
But he's got all these different kind of lights and mics and stuff that he wants to test out. So doing things like this was a perfect time for him to test it out.
Yep.
And so we're all on board for it. But yeah, I mean, we started off with basic. I mean, basic to me is, at the end of the day, all you really need to get something, the main thing you need is a camera of some sort. Microphone and everything else, I think, is secondary. I think that's the most important thing, is if you want to shoot something, the camera needs to be the go-to thing. But sound is also incredibly important.
My friend Harley actually is teaching some school kids right now about filming. And he said his solution is basically get yourself an iPhone or a smartphone, start recording that. And he said get another smartphone, duct tape it to a pole, and just hit record on the audio and just hold it and use that as a microphone.
Brilliant.
So you got
Right,
two
then you
smartphones.
just do two smartphones. There you go.
And
Yeah,
just
yeah.
clap it. And he said if it's windy, just throw a sock over it, like your actual literal sock.
Oh wow.
And it
very
does the
smart.
same job. And for all of my short film shoots, the past 6 or 7, even though my gear list has kind of grown by exponentially, I still just show to shoots sometimes with just using one reflector. I sometimes, I still shoot on, shoulder rigs. I haven't really changed. I haven't exactly, added more stuff to my gear because that's the way I like shooting. And people always think like, oh, well, if I'm going to get into a short film, I need to have 3-point lights. I need to have a sound gear and all this stuff. And yeah, sound's important, but there are things you can live without. You don't need dollies. You don't need jibs.
Oh, exactly,
you don't need,
yeah.
cranes.
Well, recently, Pork Pie released this behind-the-scenes production photo, and they showed one of their minis rigged up with heaps and heaps of scaffolding on the car so that they could have a crew of, I think, 5 people standing around the car while it's driving, operating cameras.
Yeah.
But they also released it with a photo where they attached a camera to the bonnet of a car, I think with suction cups. I could be wrong. I think it was suction cups. Put a plastic bag over the camera and just had it shooting into the through the front windscreen.
Yeah.
And it still got the job done. You're like there's no wrong or right way. It's just what works better and what you want to show up on screen, really.
What's practical,
yeah, like that thing with the 2 iPhones, that's unbelievable. Because that's so true. Like right now we live in a world where your iPhone has a better camera than what people used to shoot feature films on.
Yeah.
We're talking like studio budget films, and your iPhone has a better camera than that.
It's like, and we're getting very close to the point where technology is going to plateau, like to the point where 8K really is not visually recognizable anymore. And like you can't tell between 8K and 4K.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
If iPhones can shoot as good of a quality as some Red cameras can, then what's really stopping anybody? They already have a camera in their pockets.
I think when it comes down to that question, the answer really is story, or like coming up with that idea that you just want to see on screen, whether it's your Facebook feed or the big screen, even if it's 10 seconds, 3 hours.
It also goes down to editing as well.
The editing is a big thing.
Editing is a huge thing.
Because that will take the longest time. And the best way really is also set a deadline for editing if possible. And then when it's getting pretty close to it, just, I wouldn't say kick it out of the door, but you kind of have to. Yeah, you kind of have to kick it out of the door. You kind of have to just polish and go, this is the best I could do.
Yeah, you can't aim for perfection. You have to aim for good enough a lot of the time. Once it's good enough, that's what you have to
Otherwise,
release.
it'd just be pickups and shoot.
Yeah,
reshoot.
like,
exactly.
you might edit that thing for 10 years and it still won't be perfect.
Yeah.
One thing I do want to say is, though, like we've talked about visuals and sound, but really important, sound is probably like 60 or 70% of your film, and visuals are only like 30 to 40% of your film.
Yeah, I totally
Your
agree.
sound is so important, and so many people forget that.
Yeah.
Every single project I've been involved in, I always forget this, how important sound is until you're editing it and you're like, oh, we can't use any of that footage.
Yeah, literally
we have
looks
to
beautiful,
reshoot the whole thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, but at the end of the day, all like the technical stuff comes secondary. You've got to ask yourself why you want to shoot the short film. What's driving you? If you're passionate enough for it, if you can answer that why, the rest comes very, very easily.
Yeah, it might be because you want to shoot a short film for the first time, or you want to act in a film for the first time.
Yeah.
Well, there's a message you're yearning to tell, you know. You've got to ask yourself why, and if that why is powerful enough, the rest of it's a breeze.
Yeah, totally agree.
All right, so that's all the time we have for now. If you would like to take a part of this conversation, feel free to talk about it in the comment page in our Facebook, Angle 3 Pictures. And if you'd like to know more about us and what we do, look us up in angle3.com.
Oh, and also, if you guys want to know more about Ben and Mayen's projects, make sure you go to Po Tenjal. You can find them on their Facebook, right, guys?
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. I love that. But
You search us up. I don't think there's anyone else that has that name on Facebook or
think people
YouTube.
spell it out for the audience.
It's P-O and the symbol Tenjal.
There you go.